Hello everybody. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a shape with Inkscape and use that and change that in your SciToolkit experiment. Now, first of all, let's make an interesting shape that is not directly available in Inkscape unless you create it as a PNG. So normally you can create like a bitmap in Inkscape, like for example, let's say we are creating a face. Let's say something that is say like a green face, like this now rectangle. I make a face out of this. Let's say a robot face here with two eyes on it, and and a mouth. And for that, I'm going to um, play around a little bit with that. Let's say we have this robot shape. Let's put some ears on it. Maybe in a different color. I'll put them a little bit back. So now the reason why, so if you have a shape like this, you can save it as a bitmap, but then you cannot change the colors anymore while you're doing the experiment. But if you save it as, as an SVG file, you can even, like do some color effects on it. Say, for example, you can change the face color from, like say from green to yellow. So let's do that. Now, in order to do that, we first need to actually make this into a stimulus that would fit on a screen. So um, we need to look at think about the size of the SciToolkit display, which is 800 by 600 pixels, and what we have here. In order to look for that, you go for document properties. And you see they work with millimeters, but let's make it in pixels. And let's say we are creating it like the size of a screen first in Inkscape. This default. You can change it in Inkscape. You can use a different resolution, but like this would be nice. But actually, if we well, I can make it even a little bit smaller. If we would have this on the screen. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll keep this as it is. But when I save this SVG file that I use in Inkscape directly, um, I need to make sure that the document is as big as this stimulus. So you can do that very easily in Inkscape. You go to document properties and you say resize to content. And now you basically have, you have a document that is um, in pixels. It is 228 pixels wide and 160 pixels high. And let's um, look at a couple, and you need to take some notes. First, I can save it. Let's say save as, and I'll save it just as, say, robot sv.svg. But in order to change it later in the SciToolkit code, you need to know a few things about it. So, for example, let's say in the code we want to change the green into yellow. But in SVG, this is a vector graphic. This actually has an ID. And how can you say this? Well, see this. Well, you go on Edit, and then you go to XML Editor. And let's click here on this. And if you click on the green face, it says this actually is a rectangle. And it says rectangle ID is rect4. And you need to remember that that's called rect4. Now you might just work on that. But then make a note of that, say rect4. Okay, remember that. That is what we want to change, and we want to change its color. Let's see if it works. We can do that. Rect4. Now, okay, so I have saved this. Just save it one more time to make sure I've saved it, and I'll minimize that. And now I'm going to SciToolkit. I'm going to create a new experiment, and I call this, let's call it, say, robot. And I'm not going to make a sophisticated experiment, but just want to show you how to do this. And first of all, you need to upload the file. So you need to go to your files. You know, in whatever system you use. In Windows might look slightly different, but if I go to, so I have a file here, robot.svg, and I can, for example, drag that here on here, and then, or I could instead, I could open browse, and then I could select that file. And then you say save. So so now you have this file, robot.svg is here. Okay, it doesn't show you a preview, but it will be there. And now here, we need to say SVGs, and we need to just say robot. That and PsyToolkit will knows itself that the extension is SVG. Okay, and now we're going to make, and I assume you have worked with PsyToolkit before when you watch this video, because this is sort of an advanced topic. Now let's make a task, call the task robot face. And in this task, for example, we're going to show uh, first, like no, actually, let's not show text. We actually want to show the robot face, but let's show it twice, and we change the color after people press the button. So if we want that people can press buttons, let's say we have people can press keys, and they can respond, for example, either with the B or the N key in this experiment. And then we do, for example, show text, press B or N. So that's something you can do inside Toolkit, of course, as you know. And we also now we want to show the robot, and in order to use this as an SVG, you need to look a little bit of the syntax. We need to here to create a new bitmap that renders the robot as it is, and that's actually very simple to do. So what we do is we say SVG create, and then you need to come up with a new name, say phase one, and you base that on the SVG file that we've uploaded. So if you say SVG create phase one from robot, then PsyToolkit will create uh, a new bitmap, a new image file, basically, that it can use. And so if you just say SVG render, then PsyToolkit does that in the background, and you need to give it a little bit time um, for that. And then say, for example, you do something like you give it a short delay, say 10 milliseconds. And uh, let's also create this, SVG create phase 2 from robot. But now we are going to change this color, so we can say SVG color rect 4. That is the ID of that item that we want to change, and we change that, for example, to a color, let's say yellow. That would be in RGB, right? 255, 255.0. If you don't know this, right? So this is the RGB code, or red, green, blue channels code for yellow. And then you need to SVG render that as well. So we have now two bitmaps. So we can now show bitmap phase one, and let's say read key one. So that would be for beginning. Let's give people a lot of time, and then we say clear that specific bitmap. So that would be, well, say the last thing that have shown, and now show bitmap phase two, which would be yellow, and then for example we give 1,000 milliseconds. Now that's the whole task. I will go over it another time. Test block uh, task robot phase, and let's say do it 5 times. Let's see if this actually works. We save, we compile. Now it says successfully compiled. Now run it. And if we do that, we see a green face. So far, so good. We pressed the B key, and now you saw it became yellow. So that worked. Um, Now, of course, this is the interesting thing is would you be able to give it different colors, different on different key presses? And yes, you can do that quite straightforwardly. So let's say, for example, that we I'm trying to think of sort of like a way that it makes sense. Because if all that you do in a task that you know having a red and a green a green and a yellow face, that's maybe easier just to upload the robot's green and the robot's yellow face. You wouldn't necessarily need um, the the SVG for it. But if you want to do something where you have many different possible colors, then it would make sense. So for example, we could say, well, instead of going for yellow, we could do a random color. So how would we do that? Well, let's say we use variables and we use, say, random red, random green, and random blue. Now you also would need to set these values. So we could do that at the beginning of the task, for example, maybe at the top, say random red, and then you set it to a random value, and these color values can go from 0 to 255. So uh, let's just well let's not make it black. So let's start with a value between 100 and 255. Okay. Now you need to do that 3 times. Random red, random. So for all 3 color channels, let's do that just for the fun. Let's see what happens. And blue. And sometimes I like to align this a little bit so that we see what we do. So what we do is here, so we set 3 variables. Each variable will be a random value between 100 and 255. We tell PsyToolkit that in this task we allow people only to use the B and the N key of the keyboard. I haven't thought that through actually much. I mean, we don't use that further, but you can do that in different ways. Then we show this text on the screen, press B or N. Then uh, uh, well, that actually, to be honest with you, I think that is over painted by the image of the robot, so we would need to move that around. Maybe we put that at the bottom of the screen, 0, say, to 50, that you actually also see it. Then we create this robot, one in the color of the SVG, which is a green face, and you create a second bitmap called face 2, and that comes in a random color. And now let's run that, compile, and we run this experiment, and let's press, and now you see now it becomes gray. Now it becomes sort of like orangey, so it becomes in different colors. And that was the experiment. So now you can see how you can change sort of what I would say a complex shape, and every time it has a different face. And this is quite nice. So this is, I would certainly say, is an advanced topic in PsyToolkit. If you have questions about this, please leave them below the video, and please also like and subscribe. I'm always happy to answer your questions here under the video, or if you have you can also send me an email. I hope that was interesting, and yeah, I need to sort of like I'll show you. You see the code here. Um, let's just one more time quickly before we end go back to this, because will you be able to make this yourself? Well, remember when you do this in SVG, in Inkscape, when you create this SVG in Inkscape, remember um, that you go on this XML editor to actually see what element you want to change. That can be the face, rect 4, but if you want to change the ear, then it would be this one. Now, there are all sorts of ways of working with that. You could change the ears by first, say for example, combining them into one path, and then you could change the ears by changing this specific path called ellipse 5. So you need to play around a little bit with it, but I think this gives you a start of how to do it. Yeah, good luck with that. And as I said, questions, leave them below the video.